The August jobs report came out revealing good numbers again, which is awesome. We've seen multiple months of really good jobs numbers, which in the wake of the pandemic is obviously what we would have hoped. We saw a huge loss of jobs when all the shutdowns happened. And so seeing this all kind of swing back has been great. Now, there's no hope anyone's going to give Biden credit for this, even though they blamed him when things were not good. And I've always said the bad times weren't really his fault and the good times aren't really his doing. There's so many more economic factors, but always interesting to see the hypocrisy there. So quickly to read about it, and then we'll see Biden announcing this. The nation's job market last month delivered what the Federal Reserve and nervous investors had been hoping for, a Goldilocks style hiring report. Job growth was solid, not too hot, not too cold, and more Americans began looking for work, which could ease worker shortages over time and diffuse some of the inflationary pressures that the Fed has made its number one mission. Employers added 315,000 jobs, roughly what economists had expected, down from an average of 487,000 a month over the past year. The unemployment rate reached 3.7%. So if you remember, it had gotten all the way down to 3.5. It notched up, which usually is a bad sign, but in this current economic environment is actually a sign, as they are, as I'm about to continue reading, that more people are getting into the workforce. Because when you're seeing job growth, but then unemployment also goes up, it doesn't mean people are losing jobs. It means people who weren't previously filing as or being registered as in the workforce are getting in the workforce and looking for jobs, which in a climate where we do have worker shortages is good. So continuing on, but it rose for a healthy reason. Hundreds of thousands of people returned to the job market, and some didn't find work right away, which boosted the government's count of unemployed people. So good news on that front. As they said, it kind of was going to have to be a perfect balance because of the current economic conditions, where we want the job growth, but you can't kind of whack out too much in either direction. And it kind of did what they had hoped. So here's Joe Biden announcing this. Again, it seems so long. There were no political wins, and now they're all just squished together. Economic factors are getting better. He's had legislative wins, all of those things. And maybe that's what's motivating him to be more aggressive generally. Who knows? But here's that announcement.
To speak very briefly about today's jobs report that was just been issued. We received more good news. In August, the economy created 315,000 new jobs. The great American jobs machine continues its comeback. American workers are back to work, earning more, manufacturing more, building an economy from the bottom up and the middle out. But with today's news, we have now created nearly 10 million new jobs since I took office. Nearly 10 million jobs, the fastest growth in all of American history. In August, we also saw that the share of Americans who are working on our economy went up. Economists call that labor force participation rate. Working age women are now, for the first time.
Okay, and then as he dives into more specifics, I'll stop it there. So 10 million jobs added since the beginning of his presidency. As I've talked about, of course, there was going to be massive job growth after the lockdowns finished and all those things. So this isn't, wow, he's a genius who knows how to add 10 million jobs. No, but there was a question of, are we going to get back to where we were? Of course, we saw huge economic growth under Obama, and then it continued by some metrics a little bit slower under Trump. And then the big crash happened, which I don't even blame Trump for. COVID happened. And so then understanding, could we get back to as, economically dominant of an economy as we had? Or is it going to be another decade until we see something like that? And no, we're kind of back there. Obviously, inflation still is high, but coming down, and it's cooling off a little bit. So hopefully that'll continue. And to be clear, I like to make sure to put this caveat in when I talk about this type of economic stuff. This is not to say that the very real economic problems that existed before the pandemic don't still exist. There's always so many problems with our economy that need to be fixed. So when I say we had a really good economy, that's not saying, working people were properly treated, wealth was in the proper amount in people's hands and distribution, all that type of stuff. That all needs to be addressed. But comparing it to where it was and kind of the metrics that we follow, it is doing a lot better. And that's good news for Americans. So, good stuff. Hopefully, I'm feeling going in the midterms that if things keep going economically the way that they are, we know that while people care a lot about other issues, the economy does play a massive role in who comes out on top in elections. And so if things keep going the way they're going, and then you add on top of that the motivation of the overturning of Roe v. Wade for the Democratic Party, and you add on top of that all of Trump's anti-democratic actions, I do think you have a situation where maybe the Democrats could do what is very rarely done in history, which is keep both the House and Senate after a member of their party won the White House, 2 years ago, which would obviously be what I believe to be the best for the country.